standing here. At the end, there was nearly 20 member firms, 20 nations where we've taken this story, because so much of the story we've told is a story that is crafted in South Africa. Last week, I was with a group of chairmen in New York, talking about a future which actually has been paraphrased in the writings of the dinner camp scenarios. I was with groups of business leaders in Asia, talking about things that actually were first captured in the King reports of 94, 2002, 2009 in this nation. And the concepts of working collectively together have been better expressed in the writings of politicians and observers here than anywhere else in the world. We're enjoying telling everybody else about the splendid case study of South Africa, and I thought, I wonder if anyone's ever told the South Africans that they are such a case study. This is not a book launch. There are books, and we have launched a book. But the book is a storybook. It is a collection of tales that inspire through the way that over 100 organizations have chosen to help their people commit to doing something together rather than just telling them to do something. And we've learned from that. And the book expresses it perhaps in a way which says, well, actually, how simple could this have been? This isn't about business psychology. This is more about anthropology. This is more about us actually loving the idea of being tribes together and working towards a common purpose. So I'm going to speak for about 15 minutes to give you a frame of where we've evolved this from. Why on earth has an organization like Deloitte evolved this in the single biggest investment in thought leadership in terms of time, dollars and resources that the firm has ever done? And why, for a firm recognized for who we are, is it all about something which is to do with human beings working collectively? But hopefully I'll show you that if Deloitte's purpose, though unwritten for over a century, has been to either enhance or protect the performance of those that it's proud to have clients, then this is the last harbour of risk and performance that perhaps we had not seen, and why it's critical to us going forward. So the title's provocative. In the US, there's a lot of resistance to this word collective action. Collective sounds too much like Russia. In the UK, there was resistance to it because collective sounds too much like unions. And all these things we've wrongly looked at from a point of view of eras of capitalism and eras of success from decades before. And when we look at them again, it will be the reasons why we continue to succeed and why nations like South Africa are able to step up into the place that certainly at Davos this year, South Africa was presented as the nation that has the most conditions in place for it to take its step in the top 10 nations of the world economically. So what's behind this? Well, I've been lucky to go around the world talking to CEOs. And the CEOs we meet, it's very interesting, how do you get a CEO's time? Surely they're too busy trying to recover their organizations. And all you need is a letter that says, we'd like to talk to you about whether you think the conditions are in place for you to succeed. And not only do you get that meeting, but when you open the entire meeting with asking them, do you feel that everything is set up that lets you succeed this year, the conversation just flows. And once you stop the crying and the shouting and the tears, we come up with something which is common across the world, which is how leaders are expressing their concern going forward. And these questions are so common. For too long, we've seen human capital as a subset of performance in organizations. It doesn't actually even academically stack up as that. Very few studies could prove that enhancing human capital, talent management, does enhance performance. But when you look at human capital as a subset of risk, wow, now you get real insight. And that's why this is fundamental in the terms of governance, of risk. Why is it that boards are the largest, fastest growing group that purchase consulting now? It's because this is now under a mandate of multiple stakeholders, more than just employees. I've had, certainly the last 10 years of my career, in a role which has been called in by boards or shareholders to assess CEOs to find out have they been negligent? Have they failed as leaders? Do we indict them, praise them, bonus them, or not? And it's very clear that for the last 20 years, CEOs were judged on whether they were able to increase the speed and the scale of their organization's performance. I want double-digit growth by next Tuesday, not next Friday. And that's going to continue, but the new governance laws, certainly coming out of the Commonwealth, the King Report certainly is leading the world on its innovations around this, are going to be saying speed and scale, but also we're going to judge you on whether you can keep that performance up, sustain it, and whether you can minimize the variance in it so we're not shocked at the reporting period point. Stability. The first two, speed and scale, you can throw money at that, but the second two, that's a choice your employees make every day. And while we had to find a due diligence that harnesses that without, as one chairman put it, our fingers crossed every single month. Because we can't just have, the leadership has been a luxury good for too long. Something we send employees on to recognise them as potential, to give them a reward, to give them a qualification. But we never expect them to come back to the workplace and be this epiphany of performance. Well, we're going to have to going forward because the classic levers of getting people to do things are going to change. Talent is very rare in the Western world. 2 people are retiring from the US workforce for every 1 that's able to join it. We're running out of the people to do the business plans that we're declaring to the world. And when you look at that on a nation saying that it's able to create certain abilities and rents, that really becomes focusing. So I defy anyone who succeeded through the downturn not to wince at this statement. Anyone know a friend who's been in an organisation where that has happened? Of course, this is Emperor Nero's policy advisor 2,000 years ago, daring to comment on the new restructuring of the performance enhancement of Rome. He's encouraged to take his own life because of this, which he then does, and performance management is born. This is synthetic leadership. Let's change the brand, let's change the systems, let's put a new structure and a new strategy, do all these things, and then hope. Because it doesn't correlate before, in fact, normally correlates to enormous expense. What are we doing to not synthetically do it? What are we doing just to go and have a chat with all our people to say, are you with me? And that's what we've built as One On. We're going back to something which is not new. In fact, something we've forgotten. Perhaps we're negligent as a professional service firm not to have rekindled an old idea. At the end of the Great Recession, the academics and the first consulting firms, the writings of Drucker, 1951, the management by objectives, all these things agreed as an industry there was one formula for getting organisations to succeed. And that is, what are we doing to make them willing and able? That language has been sadly lost because we've built a $250 billion consulting industry selling able, capability, training, systems, performance, rewards, structures, strategy, assuming everyone's going to be with it, assuming everyone's going to choose to make use of it. And this equal and opposite side of the coin is everyone committed, we neglect it. And the boom years allowed us to neglect it. Well, going forward, there is no means of anything other that differentiates success as to whether our people choose to go with us. And that suddenly becomes something which shareholders are asking about. Are we all committed? Well, what we find is we're not. In fact, everything we hear around the world is that employee groups bribe themselves. Individuals bribe themselves. Reflect for yourself. Do you bribe yourself to come to work? I hate my job, but I'm paying off a mortgage. I'm helping the children to go through education. I'm going to have a holiday in Fiji next year. That I'll come to work again. Well, what if we don't bribe ourselves? And we're finding organisations in our case studies where people just love doing the task. That the ability not to have a bonus pay is forgiven because of something bigger. And this commitment thing is where we need to manage risk and performance. So we've invested 3 years. There's people in this room who have been the absolute pioneers of understanding this topic, to come up with a language. That's pretty much it. A language that explains why people choose to commit together to a common goal. And around that language, we've built a diagnostic and other capabilities, because people love doing it. We're a tribe. Let's use anthropology. We love anything which draws us into a sense of being one together. And we'll take risks. I'm sure these gentlemen in this game in India don't get a huge bonus for it beyond the extraordinary sense of purpose and alignment. We're seeing it play out in North Africa right now. Nothing new. Same formulas as how I was in Berlin in 1989 in the intelligence community to know that we had no idea that that was going to happen. So we invested years in trying to understand why did it happen, so we can try and intervene on these things.